rocks. Stay motivated and change your socks.
The Lost Art with Andrew Cox podcast. Marine Corps League and Till Valhalla Project Ambassador. Now streaming on all major podcast platforms. Thanks for tuning in to the podcast that's given a voice to our veterans. The Lost Art with Andrew Cox. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Podcast, that podcast giving a voice to our veterans. I'm your host, Andrew Cox, and today we're having a veteran story. But before we get into the episode, are you enjoying the podcast? Make sure you hit up the website. That's thelostart.podbean.com. Go check us out, see what we're all about. There is a merchandise tab. You can go in there and get you some cool gear, help support us in getting our veteran voices out for all to hear. Also, a big shout out to the Till Valhalla Project. They're out there doing some amazing things. If you don't know anything about them, go to their website. And even if you do know something about them, go to their website, check them out, because there's ways you can help them out. But go check them out at tillvalhallaproject.com. Are you a Marine veteran? Are you missing that bond you had on active duty? Then I have a place for you. Join the only congressionally chartered Marine Corps Veteran Service Organization, the Marine Corps League. Get that brother and sisterhood back in your life. Become one of the fewer, the prouder, a Marine Corps League member. All right, we're back here. I got Mike Fallon. He's Marine retired colonel. He is going to be on the podcast this coming week, Thursday, so you'll see him then as well. But Mike, it's good to have you on here to tell your story. I'm super excited. How you doing?
Hey, Jay, I'm having a great morning here in Arizona. It's 102 heading to 106 today.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's getting up there a little bit. It's not even real summer yet. So I can't imagine what you're going to be hitting in summertime.
Well, you know what they say. It's a dry heat.
That's right. Yeah. Dry heat. Yeah. Dry heat's still hot. I don't care what anybody says.
You got it. And of course, you served at 29
That's
Palms.
Right. That's right.
And
oh,
so
yeah.
You know it's hot in the daytime, and then you freeze your butt off during the nighttime.
That's right. That temperature drop it's no joke. That's for sure. So, Mike, let's start at the beginning for you, like where you grew up and then kind of what drew you to military service.
Well, AJ, I appreciate you having me on, and I hope that some youngster watches and maybe picks up a gem or two. I am a Marine Corps brat, B-R-A-T, for those that don't know what that means. It means that your father was a Marine, and my father was a career Marine. So I was born in Naval Hospital right there on Lake O'Neill at Camp Pendleton, and got an ID card when I was young because my mother and father wanted to push me to the swimming pool, and Marine bases in those days had great swim tanks. The swim tanks were for training to justifying the budget, building a swimming pool.
Right.
And so I'm sitting right now plus 70 years with an ID card, plus 70
Wow.
years with a Marine Corps paycheck. So I don't think I really had a choice. Born in Camp Pendleton, Lake O'Neill, and came home. People think I make this up, but I didn't. Came home to a Quonset hut. My father was a seasoned, salty first lieutenant, just back from World War II with a stint in China post World War II. The 4th Marines went back to China after they signed the peace agreement there on the battleship to try to just maintain the delegation in Peking and keep the rail line open. And so he served there for a year and then came home to Camp Pendleton, and he got half a Quonset hut for him and his new bride, which I got to tell you this great story. I'm going to diverge, and you got to raise your hand when I start going down a rabbit hole. This one is worth it. My mother was salt of the earth, a northern Michigander, got a partial scholarship to go to Colby College in Maine. And when she graduated Colby, we're in the middle of World War II. She wanted to do something. She joined the Red Cross, and
Oh,
she
okay.
wasn't a nurse. And so the Red Cross then was a uniformed service. They had
Hmm.
gray uniforms and, of course, red and white patches. And she went through their training to be a hostess and serve coffee and donuts, better known as a donut dolly. And these were smart college age women who ran, we'd call them a food truck today with a limited menu. And her first duty station, she was assigned to the 1st Marine Division, got to wear the blue diamond patch on the shoulder of her uniform. And she was in charge of 3 other donut dollies. And her first duty station was a rail station in Tientsin, China. And so in that rail station, in the where you waited to get on the train, they set up their coffee and donut shop. My dad, of course, swashbuckling first lieutenant, was in charge of security on the rail line with a reinforced platoon of Marines, and he made the run from Tientsin, which is right on the Yellow Sea, up to Peking. Spent the night and make the run back the next morning, and uh, met Marge, and the rest is history, right?
Oh
So
my. You know
she,
that is the workings of a great movie right there.
well, there you go. I don't know if you know the Marine Andy Milburn, another retired Marine colonel that you ought to get on if you haven't. Andy's mother, same. His father was a British sea merchant captain in
Okay.
Hong Kong. I diverge off into Andy's story. He's a respected special op retired Marine. Anyway, break. Marge is a wonderful woman, and in those days, the way my family was brought up, my father went to work before I woke. He came
Hmm.
in peacetime for dinner at 1800. We had to be seated at the table, uh, clean fingernails, and mouth shut. He would sit down at the table, and we'd always get the same 3 questions. I won't bore you. And after dinner, we'd go do our homework. Um,
Right.
she ran the family. She ran all communications. She made all decisions. Um, and one of my regrets is that I don't really know my father except secondhand about reading about him and doing research on him and talking to vets. Very few are left that knew him
Right.
and discovered that he was a real character. And I'll close on him and my early childhood saying when he retired, he was the bull colonel of the Marine Corps. And what that means is in the blue book, which is where every officer is ranked,
Right.
sequentially, he was the senior colonel in the Marine Corps, and he was sitting there for about 6 years.
Oh wow.
The Secretary of the Navy kept giving him 2-year extensions on active duty, and he started as a grunt, but when he retired, he was the senior judge on the Military Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C., and they couldn't find a qualified person, so they just kept him as a senior judge of 3. And this is, of course, the appeals court that oversees the UCMJ and hears appeals from each of the branches military courts.
Oh wow.
Uh, knew all the legends. I grew up at the dinner table either with a legend for dinner once a week, which was their practice to bring a friend over, or hearing about a legend. Um, Lou Wilson was my baseball coach when I was in Little League. Lou was a rising Medal of Honor
What?
captain, young major, later became an infamous commandant for turning around the Marine Corps. So
Wow.
my childhood, I didn't know anything else.
Hmm.
We lived at Camp Pendleton. I lived at all the bases, right? Lived
Hmm.
at Camp Pendleton when I was about 7. Walk out down the canyon a good mile. The stables at Camp Pendleton is if you come in the back gate is on the right. You've probably seen it rodeo
Yeah.
grounds on one side of the road, stables on the other. I shoveled the stalls and got to know the name Reckless the horse and learn about that great horse and the respect the Korean veterans had for Reckless, who was their pack animal carrying 106 ammo and 105
Right.
ammo, and the fact that they had to work their magic to bring Reckless back to the
Mm-hmm.
States from Korea when the war was over, and built him a place of honor in the Pendleton stables. And of course, every rodeo and every parade, Pendleton in those days had the mounted color guard, and
Right.
then always following the mounted color guard in any parade at Pendleton was Reckless, no rider, being walked by a Korean War vet that
No
in
kidding.
those days. So I get to shovel his stall and got to know the story of Reckless and learn
Wow.
from some legends that there are ways to do things in the Marine Corps. What you call using the old boy network that's not exactly using up front in your face network. So,
Right.
AJ, I'm going to catch my breath and you can refocus. I think I got through being born. Over.
No, that's fantastic. Now you shared a story, which people will hear on the next podcast or for the fireside chat about your dad and the dresser drawer, how you slept in the bottom drawer. What was it, your first year of life? Isn't that correct?
Yes, sir. Good memory there. I'll make it short. You used to get furniture if you're a senior enlisted career Marine or an officer. You could draw it to fill your quarters, so you didn't have to
Hmm.
move. So that senior first lieutenant in the Quonset hut rated a double bed, a dining room table, 4 chairs, and a dresser drawers of 4. My first crib was the bottom drawer with a nice blanket in it, a little pillow, and I went into the crib. I only know this because it was one of the stories they told, and I collaborated it with 2 or 3 other people that would come over once a week to my dad's place and play cards with him. The Quonset, by the way, was in that draw there in Delmar on the way down to the boat basin where there's a obstacle course today. There's still one
Yeah,
big Quonset hut down at the bottom that's got the LVTC Amtrak World War II Korea Museum in it.
that's
That's
right.
a big
Yeah.
Quonset hut. Ours was a little one. My crib was that drawer, and if I made too much money, he'd just take his foot and close the drawer. So I didn't know any
I love it.
better. I knew one life, that was the Marine Corps, and I did all the stateside duty stations, um, did all the great things you could do in the Marine Corps. In those days, we had what was called special services, which was
Hmm.
government funded. Today it's MWR,
Right.
which has to break even. Um, but, you know, swim training as a young lad, learning to ride a horse, learning to deal with mules up at
Hmm.
Pickle Meadows. I mean, I was with mules at Pickle Meadows going camping, 7, 8, 9, 10. It was,
Wow.
a, in retrospect, it was a great childhood. I didn't know any better. Thanks for reminding me about, uh, you could just close the drawer or hit mute when you want me to stop talking. Over.
I love it. I love it. Well, so okay, you grow up, in that environment, so you're already well groomed for the Marine Corps. So when was it that you actually decided, hey, I'm going to go ahead and go in the Marine Corps?
Well, that didn't happen until I was in college, and my father was really strict, and the truth is, we stopped talking when I became a teenager because he didn't want to put up with my arrogant attitude, and so all communications they went through my mother.
Right.
When I got ready to graduate high school, I was a fighting admiral. This is a test question for all the corpsmen who deal in. I went to Francis C. Hammond High School on Seminary Road in Alexandria, Virginia. The
Uh-huh.
Fighting Admirals. We had a big anchor out front painted white. It's Marine Corps, right? The rocks around it, it looked like the gunny made you paint it. The anchor was white, like the Master Chief made you paint the anchor. Who is Francis C. Hammond? And so,
Now,
go ahead.
no, oh no, no. I was gonna Hammond, if I'm not mistaken, well, no, I'm gonna let you say it because I don't think I got it wrong. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just challenge all the corpsmen out there. He was a Medal of Honor winning corpsman, and the high school in Alexandria was named after him because he was a local boy. Uh, Hammond High School became semi-known in the movie, and you'll have to give me the name of the movie. They merged the two high schools, and the story was about the football team of the two high schools in Alexandria, Virginia. True story. The other high
Hmm.
school downtown was George Washington.
Okay.
Remember the Titans, and
Oh, okay.
so that in the movie, the Titans football team high school was all black, and Hammond was all white.
Right.
That was literary license from Hollywood. I was on the Hammond football team. We were 30, 30, 30, Hispanic, white, black on the football team, and we were
Wow.
good. George Washington was 60-40 black white
Yeah.
population, and the football team they were good. And when they merged the two high schools, made the two buildings middle schools, and built T.C. Williams, Hammond went on a not Hammond, T.C. Williams went on a football streak, Division 1A, Virginia championships. They made the movie. A lot of literary license. Uh, that all happened after I left. I knew the coaches didn't
No
know. So
kidding. Wow.
in high school, I was a C minus student at best. I took
Hmm.
choir and PE to get the given grades of A to have a 2.0 average to try to have some sort of resume. Uh,
Right.
did not do well at East Carolina Teachers College, which has become East Carolina College, has become East Carolina University down
Hmm.
in Greenville. Lasted less than a semester from being the smallest guy in their football team and a blocking dummy uh, only, and getting my bell rung, and having a report card that was worse than my uh, high school card. So I go home and I'm playing basketball at the Catholic Church
Yeah.
in the summer, sweating my ass off in Alexandria, Virginia, there at the 5 crossroads intersections, across from the pizza place, still there. And the Monsignor comes out and says, Fallon, of course, I had been an altar boy there. And what are you doing
Hmm.
here? Come into my office in the back of the church. I said, well, I didn't make it at ECTC. And, ECTC was like your safety school. It wasn't
Hmm.
University of North Carolina. It was like,
Right.
holy shit, everybody could get into ECTC. He said, well, you got to go to college, young man. So he picks the phone up and he calls Belmont, North Carolina, and talked to the abbot at Belmont Abbey. And Abbeys
Okay.
are run by abbots. And then he says, okay, puts the phone down. He says, okay, you're in Belmont Abbey. You got to be down there on Monday, right?
Oh, wow.
But you're on probation. So I went
Okay.
home and told my mom, and my mom was happy, and so I go to Belmont Abbey. Uh, the story that I learned later and learned later in my education that really bothers me today. So it's out to young people that maybe get off the track. My father was a Naval Academy graduate,
Hmm.
which meant in those days he had a legacy appointment. I could
Right.
have had a slot to the Naval Academy if he had dipped his hat and picked the phone up. Uh,
No kidding. Wow.
he did not think I could make it on the
Hmm.
Naval Academy football team, and he was right there. I was not a good football player. I was a blocking dummy that they, put him on defense and try to hide him somewhere behind the line because he's not that big. Um,
Yeah.
and I didn't know about the program, never got challenged. He was afraid I would give the family name a black mark. So I went to Belmont Abbey. Um, the short story is I turned it around, and in anger with my father, to answer the question, in 1966, I walked in. I had to drive from Belmont, North Carolina, up to the Golden Triangle into Raleigh, and went in and knocked on the door and told the staff sergeant who was trying to screen me. I said, "No, I want to see the captain," because I thought I knew everything about the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Walked in, centered myself on the captain's desk, said, "I want to join the Marine Corps." So he sat me down and said, "Okay, we'll sign you up and you can go next week to boot camp, but you're in college." He said, "How about this thing called the Platoon Leaders Class, PLCs?"
Right.
So that was a entry level way to get in the Marine Corps I'd never heard of. And it's an officer candidate program, real quick for the Marine Corps benefit, that feeds reserve officers into the establishment. And as a college student, you can join in any year, and you select if you have the grades, and you write the essay and you go through the board and you get picked. It's hard now to get a PLC slot. Today's Marine Corps. Very, very competitive because it's an officer program. It's a good deal. This is the Vietnam War.
Right.
You fog a mirror, man, you're in. And so he
Right,
says,
yeah.
"I'll sign you up PLCs. You get to go 2 summers, 6 weeks at a time to Quantico. And in the summer, you went and you formed up just like you were going through OCS as a candidate with, your senior drill instructor and your juniors."
Right.
So I signed up for PLCs in 1966 in the 2-summer program. And that summer, I didn't tell my father, didn't tell my mother. School was over. I had a banger car. I drove to Quantico. You weren't supposed to have cars. I knew where to park it in Q-Town.
Yeah.
And thought I was really smart, checked in, and they put me on a bus and sent me to Camp Geiger, which the PLC guys and Quantico vets know. Camp Geiger is west of the basic school,
Right.
on the large base at Quantico. And guess what? Checked in. It was a Quonset hut with bunk beds and 90 of my best friends and 3 drill instructors. Wow. And I loved it. I thought it was funny. I knew the first rule, keep your mouth shut.
Right.
And it got me in great shape. I went back to Belmont Abbey. I was on the baseball team, and the coach was a baseball coach and a soccer coach because they only had 2 coaches and 1 athletic director. And he said, "Shit, you're the best shape anybody. You can run. Come on out for soccer." I said, "Never even touched a soccer ball." He says, "I don't care. You got stamina. You can run. You're on the team. If you come out, I'll teach you." So
Wow.
went on the soccer program, basically to stay in shape. So went to Belmont Abbey, and then I'm sitting there and I'm watching the Vietnam War, and I'm saying, I'm going to miss the friggin' war. And like a lot of young men that join the service, they join it for family legacy reasons. They heard it at the dinner table and they're subconscious. They're really joining the Marine Corps to prove to themselves or to somebody or to a whole group of people, high
Right.
school friends, family friends, that they got what it takes to be a Marine. And I figured out I was going to make it after that first summer, and enjoyed, adapted, got recognition, all the little stuff for keeping your mouth straight and knowing how to make a bed. I had to make a tight bed since I was 5 years old. Flip
So
a
that was
quarter
easy
on it.
for
That was
you.
nothing. Anyway, I thought I was going to miss the Vietnam War. So I started going around the clock, taking heavy loads of easy classes to get out. I call it in a 3-year program. And so I got out after 3 years, and I was a class of 68 at Belmont, but it was I call it 68.5. I graduated there in the second week of December.
Oh, okay.
1968, and went home for Christmas. And home then was Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. My dad lived
Hmm.
out on Paradise Point. He's
Right.
senior major lieutenant colonel by then. And after that 2 week Christmas break, which I ran the golf course every morning, my mother made me 5 egg omelets, and I just ran every day as hard as I could because I was going the next, last week of January to TBS.
Right.
And
And
so my
plenty of
father
running
had
there
told,
for sure.
yeah, my father had taught me when you check into a duty station, you check in the last day of your orders at 5 minutes before midnight. He says, if you're
Right.
the eager beaver and you check in a week ahead of time, you're getting put on the working detail. You're going to cut the grass. You're going to stand the duty. So just check in at midnight when they want you, and they'll give you a rack, and you'll start the next morning. So I
Right.
show up at out at the basic school out there at Quantico, and check in the quarter deck of the main building that's still there. And the second lieutenant, who was probably two companies ahead of me, I'm in jeans and a t-shirt. The
Yeah.
car's parked in the no parking right in front of the flagpole. And I say, hey, I'm checking in. And he checks the roster and he says, okay. I said, write the time down. And by this, it's after midnight. I said, you got to write 11:58 or 59. He says, why? Because I don't want to be in violation. He writes it down on the orders and he looks at the roster. He says, do you know where Camp Geiger is? I said, oh, yeah, sure. Hey, dude, I'm a lieutenant. I'm coming here. The hall was O'Bannon Hall.
Yeah.
Lieutenants got housed. Tell me what room I said, no, you're wrong. We got extra companies. They were pushing through one company a month graduated. And so he said, go to Camp Geiger. So I drive out to Camp Geiger and I check in there, and a guy sends me down to, hey, a Quonset hut. The only difference is when I was a second lieutenant, we didn't have bunk beds. We had a single rack, and we got our own wall locker. We didn't share it in our own foot locker. And we didn't have
Okay.
90 in the Quonset hut. We had 30, a platoon. Holy moly, my own Quonset hut at Camp Geiger. I can't get away from Quonset huts. I'm going to finish out and say my recruiter was a gentleman by the name of Captain Mundy, Mundy. All the old
Yeah.
Marines will know him
Uh-huh.
because he ultimately became the commandant of the Marine Corps. And he did his time in recruiting, which is shout out to every recruiter and every OSO.
Hmm.
The hardest duty in the Marine Corps, inside of combat, outside of combat, you get rejected every day. The Marine recruiters are the best in the United States. The Marine recruiting has not missed mission in longer time than I can remember. And so
Yeah.
anyway, General Mundy was my recruiter, but I was a walk-in, and he signed the paperwork. But a lot of guys didn't believe me. I had to Xerox a page out of my OQR to show the people that Mundy uh,
That is wild.
was my
Now,
guy. And later in
he was a
life,
captain at the time?
later in life I had to remind him. He didn't remember me.
Oh,
So
really?
this is after I decided to stay in.
Yeah.
So despite my dad, and to prove to myself I could do it, I joined the Marines like a lot of young men do when, and their parents don't know it, but they're trying to prove something to the family. Joined in
Right.
1966. So, AJ, thanks for asking that question. Thanks for letting me
Yeah.
be a run-on sentence and tell that story. But
No, it's
over to you. Over
perfect.
to you.
It's perfect. So now at this point, now you finished TBS, and at that point, did you know you were going to be an infantry officer? Like, did you get assigned as that, or is that something that you wanted from the get-go?
So I got two good stories there. Man, and
Okay.
I didn't write down a list of stories to tell, but you ask a question that rings a bell. In
Yeah.
TBS in those days, uh, aviators had a flight guarantee, which meant they
Hmm.
were going to Pensacola to
Right.
compete for some type of aircraft. in our class, we had one lawyer. He had a law guarantee.
Hmm.
Everybody else, just like today, competed for an MOS, except with the Vietnam War at the height of its um, population size, over
Right.
500,000 Americans there, Marine Corps with 2 full divisions and a supersized aircraft wing and a force logistic command that was the same size as 2 FSSGs. Same
Right.
model that, by the way, that General Boomer used in Desert Storm, Desert Shield.
Hmm.
2
No
divisions,
kidding.
1 super wing, and
Yeah.
then a logistics support unit divided between general support and direct support, which is a great way to divide your support. Everybody went infantry except for, like, you know, 1 or 2 guys at the top of the class could pick Artie and go out to Fort Sill, but
Mm.
there weren't any other MO. It didn't matter. I wanted to go infantry. All the infantry guys competed to get a slot to go to Ranger School or a
Oh, I
slot to
see.
go to Recon Replacement School, which was a Marine Corps school.
Right.
Think of that name, Recon Replacement School. What happened to the dude in front of you that you got a slot in that school?
Yeah.
Anyway, we were on the fast track, 5 months through TBS. We spent 4 months at Geiger. We did get to move to O'Bannon Hall for our final month of TBS, and my my platoon commander was a captain named Green. He turned out to be a career officer. Was a good guy, not real strict. My company commander was a captain who pinned on major while he had the company, and he was a tanker named Claude Renke. He ended up
Okay.
being one of the few tankers that ever made general. So we're 3 weeks out, and we're at MOS night, and
Hmm.
Captain Green told me, "Hey, you're a shoe-in. You got infantry. Don't worry about it." And the next morning, the sergeant says, "The company commander wants to see you." This is before formations out front, and he hardly ever came out and took the formation. I went down to
Right.
his office 3 times, bang, 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 went in there. He said, "Stand at ease, Fallon." He said, "Hey, I got some good news and bad news. You're going to be an infantry officer, but your orders are going to read Camp Lejeune." And I said words to the effect of WTF over. I joined the Marine Corps to go to Vietnam. And he
Yeah.
said, look, you might not know this regulation, but it's not even a regulation, it's a policy, which is less than a
Uh-huh.
regulation. Only one family member can be in Vietnam at a time. And your
All
old
right.
man's in Vietnam. And we've left you alone. We knew your old man. By this time, my old man's a colonel and's got, like, he's an
Hmm.
old school colonel in the Marine Corps, like a lot of leverage.
Right.
They said, holy shit. We left you alone to make your own way. So, AJ, we dropped out, and I had an American flag in the buffer. So did
Sorry
I?
about that.
No,
I,
that's not
I'm back now.
okay. So short. So company commander says Claude Renke, great guy, great. Became friends with him later in the Marine Corps. You're going to Lejeune. Nothing I can do about it. I'm only a company commander. I go back and I write the only letter that I've ever written to my father. You know,
Hmm.
postal letter, and I send the letter to Vietnam, and he's with the 3rd Marine Division up in Dong Ha at the time as a
Okay.
colonel. And I said, I haven't asked you for anything ever. You're going to ruin my career. Uh, I really need to go to Vietnam.
Right.
And he never answered the letter. So our graduation is 3 weeks later, and it's choker whites in the
Yeah.
summertime, and it's Little Hall. Little Hall's the theater on Main Side,
Okay.
right there above Quantico Town.
Uh-huh.
And at Little Hall, you walked the stage and they gave you a tube, which was supposed to have your certificate for graduation, but they hadn't been printed yet. But you had your final orders in the tube, and
Mm-hmm.
they pretended it was your graduation. And you went back and you sat down. Everybody clapped. The general came and spoke. The 3-star. His
Mm-hmm.
title then was the commanding general of Marine Corps Schools. Quantico was
Okay.
Marine Corps Schools then. And now I'm having a buffer. There we go. I tell you what, I'm sorry to do that. I'm not doing that on purpose.
You're
And
fine. You're fine on my end.
we finish and we go out front and everybody's standing around. A lot of people, their parents come. I didn't invite anybody. I'm off to the side and Captain Green comes up. I salute him. And he said, "You check out your orders." No. So I pull it out and I look at it and it said, uh, proceed immediately to Recon Replacement School, authorized, which was at LFTC PAC in Coronado, and I'm in Quantico. I
Mm-hmm.
had four days to get there,
Oh my
and
gosh.
then post Recon Replacement School report into 5th Reconnaissance Battalion. And I said to Green, I said, "What is 5th Reconnaissance Battalion? Never heard of these dudes." He
Yeah.
says, "I don't have a clue. You don't need to worry about that right now. You got to figure out how to get to Coronado, California. Do you know where it is?" I said, "Of course I know where it is. You used to go to the beach there. Are you kidding? When I was a boy, you got to get to Coronado, California in 4 days and report into school." And
Oh my gosh.
the backstory is my father picked up the auto din phone line at the division headquarters,
Uh-huh.
called in the middle of the night, times difference, 14-hour difference, called headquarters Marine Corps in the old Navy Annex up on the hill next to
Okay.
Henderson Hall, talked to the head monitor and said, "Hey, look, my 9 months on my third tour in Vietnam is this date. Cut me orders to anywhere in the Marine Corps, and then cut a set of orders for my boy to go in." And
Okay.
so, he took care of me.
Very nice.
And so I missed Ranger School, which was a blessing because I went to the real Ranger School, Vietnam, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
saved all the processing time, 3 months. I've got great friends that went there, know lots of great Rangers, and have all the respect for the school. Is a premier school of, besides actually doing it, scouting
Mm-hmm.
and patrolling. But went to the best school, and I've been to all of them now, that I've ever been to in the Marine Corps, Recon Replacement School. So
Okay.
graduate TBS. Captain Green said, "Don't worry about 5th Recon. You can figure that out later. Get to Recon Replacement School, do well, and I'll see you around the Corps." So let me catch my breath. I got to
Yeah.
tell you how I got west. Over.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that. 4 days to get there, and I imagine, I don't know, in my head, I could see you driving your car all night and just really hammering to try to get there. So I'm excited to hear about how you managed to get there. So it'll be good.
Absolutely. You got it right. We were second lieutenants. We didn't have any money because we spent it all on the weekends chasing girls at Mary Washington University.
Right.
Um, I had a banger from college that would not make it across uh, country, and I
Right.
had already sold it to a lance corporal who, by the way, worked out at Camp Upshur. So I'd already handed the
Okay.
car off to a lance corporal for $200, and I'm sitting there scratching my head in choker whites, and a suite mate from O'Bannon Hall, he
Uh-huh.
lived across the John in the room across, and we had two people to a room plus a daytimer, which was a married officer who lived off campus but kept a wall locker with us. So in
Okay.
our suite, there were six of us. Joe Delacourt lived across the suite, was a suite mate.
Right.
And Joe came from a rich family, and somewhere in the back of the mind, I remember what empire his grandfather founded, but he was born with a silver spoon and
Right.
had great clothes, and of course, drove a Corvette and had
Oh,
all the
wow.
women in TBS. And I said to Joe, I got to get across country in 4 days. He said, well, I'm going on 30 days leave and I'm heading home. I said, where's your home? He says, La Jolla. I said, yeah, great. Can we do it in 4 days? He says, let's go. I'm parked in a parking lot across this, right across the little hall.
Yeah.
Let's drive back to O'Bannon, get out of these choker whites, get our sea bag. Our 2 sea bags went in the back. It was a convertible. Put it down. We bought the case of beer. We drove straight through drinking beer to La Jolla. I got a great dinner from his parents, and then
Very
went down
nice.
and checked in at midnight again. And LFTC Pack, which is a landfill there on the Coronado Spit that goes into
Yeah.
the harbor side, went in, petty officer on the desk at the BOQ said, I need a room, checking in for Recon Replacement School. Hey, sir, I'm sorry. I got to stamp you, no quarters available, which is really a good deal if you really know what you're doing,
Yeah.
because it means you can live in town. But
Uh-huh.
at midnight, with school starting the next morning, I didn't want it. He said, look, there's this big hotel down the strip about half a mile called the Hotel del Coronado.
Oh,
We
yeah.
got a
Uh-huh.
deal there. And he worked there part-time. You
Okay.
go there, they'll give you a room. Tell them you're a student. Here's a
Yeah.
card. I go to the Hotel Del. I check in. I said, holy shit, this is the world-renowned Hotel Del. I'm
Yeah.
going to be
It's
living on the
amazing.
hog. He
Yeah.
gives me the room. He says, take the elevator to the 4th floor, go to the end of the hall, get in the stairs, and go to the 8th floor. My room was the old maids' quarters, where they
Oh,
had a
okay.
hallway for the maids when they built that wooden monster, the Hotel Del. I had a dormer window. It looked at the ocean, a bed, and a door.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Oh, with the shitter and shower down the hall. But guess what? It introduced me to the Hotel Del bar, a classic
Yeah.
bar. If you ever go to Coronado and you want to impress your girl, you take her to Hotel Del. Then you go into town down to Mexican Village, which is where all the UDT guys in those days, now
Mm-hmm.
the SEALs, hang out and get a great Mexican meal and drink beer on a budget you can afford. So
Right.
checked into
Yeah.
Recon Replacement School thanks to Joe Delacorte, who's stayed in the Marine Corps, actually ultimately became a Hawk missile guy. And
Oh,
in the
wow. Okay.
Desert Shield, Desert Storm, uh, Joe was smart. He never got passed over like me. Um, he had all the Hawk missiles for the Marine Corps in Desert Shield, Desert Storm,
No kidding.
um, for the air defense there. Not
Yeah.
that they shot anything down, but he was the last great officer, Hawker, in the Marine
Yeah.
Corps. He's now passed. He retired and hung out in Orange County.
Mm-hmm.
Redid a Corvette that was the same year as his year.
Oh, okay.
Married a great girl who was a GS 15 and then an SCS in the Marine Corps
Uh-huh.
on the welfare side.
Got it.
But Joe's passed now. A shout out to Joe for getting me across country in 4 days. So
Yeah. Not
I'm
just
there at
across
Recon
country in four
Replacement School.
days. You
Yeah.
you did it in style.
Yeah. Let me tell you
Excuse me.
about Recon Replacement School.
Yeah, go ahead.
It was 4 weeks. You could have called it, I think in previous lifetimes and in current days, they have part of it. You could have called it Fire Support Coordination, Forward Observer, or in today's parlance, JTAC school.
Right. Okay.
The first week was classroom,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the same stuff we got in TBS. You got to learn call for fire for artillery, and you
Right.
ended up with a laminated card with the call for fire on it that all lieutenants kept in their pocket.
Right.
You learned how to call naval gunfire.
Mm-hmm.
there's a supporting arm, but because it's naval gunfire, of course, the laminated card's got 6 more lines on it to
Mm-hmm.
call naval gunfire mission. You put it in your pocket, and you learn the theory of calling close air support, which is a
Okay.
9-line brief. You get the
Mm-hmm.
9-liner laminated, and you put it in your pocket.
Right.
That's the first week. Second week, third week, fourth week is 1 week of practical application. And what was great about Recon Replacement School was 12 students,
Mm-hmm.
had to be staff sergeant or gunny, second lieutenant or first lieutenant to get a school seat on orders to Recon,
Yeah.
because Recon lives on supporting arms when you get in a shit sandwich.
Right.
So in the application week, artillery, you went up to Camp Pendleton and you went in the tower,
Mm-hmm.
right there on the other side of the road from Las Pogas,
Right.
and
Yeah.
the 12 students had a battery of 105s and live ordnance. Each student got to shoot 1 or 2 fire missions a day. When the mission was over, the instructor and the other students would critique you,
Right.
and you learn to adjust and all that. And what you did was you got confidence in yourself
Mm-hmm.
on not only radio procedure, but really the big thing is you're the boss of the guns. You got to tell them where to shoot. So
Right. Yeah.
the next week you go out to San Clemente Island,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a destroyer lined up, and you're sitting
Oh,
on the
wow.
OP on San Clemente. You're calling direct fire naval gun for a week, and you get off on Thursday because the ship had to go back to San Diego because it was the Navy. They're going to Libo. You
Yeah.
got to fly in a helo, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
CH-46. You back to Pendleton, get the weekend off, and then last week, same thing. You went to the OP and called close air support. You got A4s normally,
Wow. Yeah.
Navy or Marine, and they tried to get you 1 or 2 airstrikes a day. Usually worked out 1 a day.
Mm-hmm.
That was 12 airstrikes. Blue bombs, which means they were dummy bombs with a blue nose on it, and you got a little blue
Oh,
puff
okay.
instead of regular bombs, except for I think right at the end they were saving money. So
Mm-hmm.
Recon Replacement School, best school I ever went to, because when it was over, VFR direct to 5th Recon, go to San Francisco, no leave, you're going in country via Okinawa. And so I start
So you
that
went
trip and I'll
you went
catch my
directly
breath.
from the school, San Francisco, Okinawa, directly to Vietnam. No leave, no nothing.
Right,
You're just moving.
right.
That's
And,
really wild.
and by then I'd been done a little research and been told that 5th Recon
Hmm.
supported 5th Marine Division. I couldn't figure that out because 5th Marine Division was stood up for a little while at Camp Pendleton. It really wasn't a division, but the 27th Marine Regiment
Hmm.
was a regiment from the 5th Division, and the
Hmm.
27th Marine Regiment was deployed in country to reinforce at different times, either 3rd Division or the 1st Division. And
Hmm.
so Alpha Company, 5th Recon,
Right.
was the company that supported the regiment. And then 3rd Platoon Alpha Company supported 326.
Wow.
So I'm going via Oki, no staging battalion. It's only because they need lieutenants. I'm going to
Right.
320. I'm going to 3rd Battalion, 26 Marines of 1968 caisson fame.
Hmm.
And I land at night. We come on a commercial flight like everybody else. We land at night in Da Nang, and
Hmm.
they open the door, and we get hit with that heat, humidity, tarmac, oil
Right.
smell, unique smell. And we walk down and instantly soaked through your sateen utilities that
Right.
makes you stand out from everybody else as an FNG. And as you're coming down, you have to walk down the stairwell. There wasn't under the tarmac, they
Right.
roll the thing up. As this plane load of guys are walking out, there are the old guys walking in old utilities. Most of them were clean, but hollow eyes, long range stare,
Right.
and then always a couple snide comments if there was Marines to Marines. So we hit the hangar there, and the clerk says, "You're going to 326." I said, "No, I'm going to 5th Recon." The Lance Corporal says, "Sir, you're going to 326." Stamps my orders 326. By the way, 5th Recon supports 326. Go out on the bench and wait for the truck.
Okay.
About an hour later, here comes this truck. Lance Corporal jumps out and says, "Anybody in 126, 226, 326, or any artillery battalion?" Because the Northern Artillery Cantonment, which is where the 11th Marines were, was down what was Division Road further out than the 26th Marines rear. So we climb on the back, haul our sea bag up, blah, blah, blah. I go in, I check into the adjutant shop at 6 in the morning, and warrant officer's sitting there. It's a Southeast Asia hut. Leave my sea bag outside. Check in, hand my orders over. He looks up, says, "Glad you're here, sir. Go down to supply, leave your sea bag, draw your field gear. You're going to Lima Company." Wait a minute, warrant officer. Hey, I'm special. I'm Recon, right? I'm going to 5th Recon. I'm going to the Recon platoon. He goes, "Hey, Lieutenant, you got a lot to learn. Shut the fuck up. You're going to Lima Company. Go down there." So I do that and get all my shit, and I come back, and all my orders are stamped. And he says, "Okay, go to the armory, get your weapons. I recommend you get an M16 and a 45. I said, "Roger that." And be down at the LZ at 1300. Roger that.
Yeah.
I go down to the LZ. Oh, and take your bars off. You're not in the rear anymore. Roger that. I had heard that. I get down to LZ. I check in with a Lance Corporal. Lance Corporals ran the division.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
And they had power. Check in. He said, "Yeah, you got about a half hour. Crap out." So I get on the 46. 46 takes me out to Hill 190, which is a hill just north of Da Nang on the Song Tu Bong River that overlooks the south bank of Elephant Valley, which was an east-west valley and a old French road in Elephant Valley, parallel to the river we used to call the Yellow Brick Road, that the NVA used to come off a spur, if you would, the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
Right.
So
I want to take a moment to talk about something important: getting the VA disability rating and benefits you've earned. The VA claims process is overwhelming and can feel like a maze. For a lot of us, just getting started is half the battle. That's where Brookside comes in. Brookside Veteran Services. We've got your six. Brookside has helped tons of veterans, just like you and me, take on the VA claims system with confidence. Whether you're filing for the first time, going through an appeal, or trying to get rating increase, they've got your back. Here's some of what they offer: step-by-step help with your VA disability claim, support with appeals and increases, a personalized approach that respects the unique services and situation, and the best part, no upfront fees. They only get paid when you do. Go see the website, www.helpvetusa.com. Contact Michael Irie, Veteran Services Representative on Facebook, or email michael.helpvetusa@gmail.com or admin.helpvetusa@gmail.com. The bottom line is, you served your country. You earned these benefits. Let Brookside help you get what's yours. Brookside Veteran Services. We've got your
I
six.
get to Hill 190, dust all clears away. I'm off it. I walk up, and there's a private sitting on a sandbag. I said, "Where's the CO?" He looks up at me and he says, "The skipper. He's up in the tower." I said, "What's the tower?" And I look over there. There's a big wooden tower that's away from the LZ that's, 35 feet high, overlooking the valley. So I go down there and drop all my shit and look up. There's a skipper up there. Yeah, come on up. I climb the thing. I get up there. I met my company commander, First Lieutenant John Rabb, R-A-B-B,
Okay.
out of Chicago. Just a wonderful person. Really had his stuff together. Obviously, he started as a second lieutenant. He's now the Lima Company commander. And he said, "I'm really glad to see you." And I said, "Well, am I getting a platoon?" He says, "Well, not exactly." I says, "What about the recon platoon?" He goes, "Look, I'm the CO of this company. And now that you're here, you're the second officer in the company. You can be whatever job, you can be whatever, you can call yourself whatever you want. You can be the XO, you can be the recon platoon commander, you can be first, second, or third platoon. I don't care what you call yourself. There is no recon platoon. All those Marines have been sent to reinforce squads. The 13-man rifle squad averaged in the field in 326 then, 1969, was about 9 Marines, with an attached gun team, which was 2 Marines.
Wow.
He said, when you get down from this, you go down to the guard shack, in front of the Hill 119, sit there in a box, wait for the 6x. He says, look up there, see those clouds? I said, yeah, on the other side of the valley. That's Hivon Pass. You're going to Hivon Pass, and you're in charge of security for Hivon Pass.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I said, well, what do I do? He said, well, make sure that the NVA or the VC don't close the road. You got to keep Route 1 open because the supplies come from the ship, and all the supplies for 3rd Marine Division go through Hivon Pass. So get on a truck, go up to Hivon Pass. Staff Sergeant Ski is in charge of the pass right now. He'll brief you. Got it. Go down, wait an hour, truck comes. Where are you going? Going to Fubai. You going through Hivon Pass? The driver looks at me like I'm a dumb shit. The only road to Fubai is through Hivon Pass. No, yeah. Jump on, I'll drop you off. So I get in the back of this truck.
Yeah.
I ride to Hivon Pass, and it's 2-lane. It's at least 50 switchbacks.
Oh,
built by the French. It's always been the only pass through this spur of the Analyte Mountains that run all the way out to the sea. In the crotch of the pass is a Chinese watchtower. Next to it is a cement bunker, poured cement machine gun bunker built by the French. And then there's like all these sandbag bunkers on both sides of the pass. And there's 2 mechanical mules there. We can describe what that is later. I jump off the truck, and there's another truck stopped, 6x going the other way. The 2 drivers are talking about what they've seen on the road.
Right.
This tall Marine, about 6'2", blonde hair, dirty utilities. Hey, are you the new lieutenant? I said, yep. Really glad you're here. Come on down here. This is Lance Corporal Ravello. He's your radio operator. He'll give you the brief. I said, are you Staff Sergeant Ski? He said, yeah. I said, you're supposed to give me the brief. I'm on my way to R&R. See you, sir. Walks over, jumps on the 6x. Bang. He is out of there.
Wow.
So I go in there and hey, Ravello, how you doing? He said, hey, sir, you got to live with me in this bunker. I said, why is that? Well, that's where we got all the radios. That's your job. I said, okay, Ski, or Ravello. So, I'm, let's see, I'm about 7 days, maybe 8 days out of Recon Replacement School. And now, hey, Ben, I'm the man.
Yeah.
Charge of Hyvon Pass. And Hyvon Pass had a bunker, sandbag bunker on the road, about every mile. There's a
Okay.
machine gun bunker built on the shoulder of the road, usually the low side shoulder. High
Okay.
side is a cliff straight up, low side is a cliff straight down.
Oh,
And the
wow.
bunker is manned by 2 Marines and 2 ARVN. ARVN
Okay.
are the Army of the Republic of Vietnam soldiers.
Mhm.
4-man position, all the way up the pass, all the way down. The 2 mechanical mules. Mechanical mule is that little flat thing that looks like a stretcher with 4 wheels.
Right.
Post that comes out and a steering wheel. It was like a logistics vehicle that you could drive around and carry stuff on.
Mhm.
2 mechanical mules with 4 Marines on each mule, a driver and 3 guys hanging on for their life. That was the reaction force.
Oh my
Well,
God.
if you started down the hill on a mechanical mule, you had to bail out if the driver didn't burn out the brakes going around on the
Oh
thing.
my
It was
gosh.
better to dog trot down the hill. So anyway, I'm 8 days in there, and Lance out of Recon Replacement, and we got a bank of radios on one side and 2
Uh-huh.
built-in ledges with rubber bitches on them. And he says, "That's yours rack. That's my rack. Got these green speakers up there. All the speakers are on."
Yeah.
And he says, "Okay, that's Battalion TAC 1. That's Battalion TAC 2. That's Company TAC 1. That's Company TAC 2. That's Platoon TAC 1. That's Platoon 2. That's the hotline, double eight line, down to the
Right.
ARVN Company commander who's
Oh,
living in a
wow.
French fort down the hill, and running parallel to the road on both sides of Hyvon Pass is a narrow gauge railway. But at
Okay.
Hyvon Pass, at the French fort on the south side, the Da Nang side, the rail gauge splits and sort of stays close to the coastline while the road goes up the pass. And there are
Got it.
3 long tunnels that go through, and they come out and on a stretch of road called the bowling alley because it's straight as anything when you hit the lagoon after Hyvon up to
Right.
Phubai. The narrow gauge road and Route 1, National Route 1, come together.
Mhm.
The ARVN is really in charge of keeping the tunnel secure. The
Mhm.
guy's name was Dowie Tap. Dowie is
Okay.
captain. Tap was the name he used with us. God knows what was his real name.
Right.
And above all these radios are these C ration boxes folded open and black grease paint with the current frequency and a call sign underneath one. And
Oh,
then
wow.
there's an ammo box chair. This is a chair made like a lazy boy chair out of old ammo boxes, nice big high back arms. Here's old Ravella sitting there, and there's a map on the wall, and he's listening to he'd grab a radio besides the double E8s to the French fort with the ARVN captain, there was one to each bunker on the south side and the north side. So you
Okay.
talk to the bunkers on the crank phone.
Gotcha.
Party line. Everybody could listen in.
Yeah.
Anyway. So I sat there for about 2 days and watched him run the defense. And then one afternoon, the thing was sniper fire from way up above would shoot down at the bunker to get
Okay.
your attention or something. And of course, they would close the road. The road closed at 6 p.m. every night because
Oh,
there's a
okay.
curfew in South Vietnam. If you're out after dark, you're the enemy. Rule of
Mhm.
engagement, you could shoot them.
Right.
The road closed, no movement on the road. Anybody on the road after dark, you could shoot them. Well, the VC or the NVA would try to crater the road because if you stop the road, then everything north is by helo, C-130, or by boat, and
Right.
that's a whole division of Marines. That's 10,000
Oh,
plus
wow.
the logistics tail. So all day
Mhm.
long, mainly fuel tankers and 6x with pallets of food and ammo going
Mhm.
through the thing. They'd try to crater the road. The start of it would be sniper fire, kind of cover, and they would try to go halfway between two bunkers. Sappers go down there and try to get something in.
Mhm.
The Marines or an Army would turn the M60. You couldn't see down the road. They just shoot down the road to chase them off, like sand
Right.
fleas. So he says, "Hey, sir, do you know how to shoot naval gunfire?" I said, "Sure, yeah, I can do that." He said, "Oh, we got this destroyer that keeps calling us up every day, and he says he's looking for work and he's in direct support. Do you know what that means?" I said, "Yeah, it means he got to do what we tell him." He says,
Yeah.
"Do you think you could shoot the naval gunfire at that sniper?" "Well, we don't know if we don't try." I said, "Which radio?" He points to this radio up there. I said, "What's their call sign?" He tells me, and I can't remember right now. It might have been something like War Cloud or something. I say, "Hey, War Cloud, this is Hivon Pass. War Cloud, Hivon Pass." "Yeah, Hivon Pass. What do you got?" "I got a fire mission ready to copy." "Whoa, wait a minute. Let me get the naval gun officer." The guy runs, gets this guy. This guy calls me up. "Yeah, ready to copy." By this time, I found my naval gunfire laminated card in my top left
Right.
pocket, and I asked the lance corporal which bunker, and he says it's bunker A7, and I said, "Give me the 6-digit grid above the bunker." He goes, "Okay." So he gives us that. I call him up. We get this round out, and we could hear it shooting,
Oh
and
wow.
we could hear it go by us. We hear no impact, and I go,
Oh no.
"Fuck." He said, "Well, I guess you shut over a bit. Let's drop some." I call him up, drop 100. So we shoot 5 rounds. We finally, till we're hitting the side of the mountain. So this
Okay.
is, and all the stuff went away as soon as we shot the first naval gunfire. Everything
Yeah.
stopped on both sides. So hell, the troops are ecstatic, and they're all talking back and forth. And
Yeah.
I said, "Well, this is not going to work very good. We got to register these targets so we don't go through this horseshit and I don't shoot
Right.
somebody." "What does that mean?" So I call up and said, "I want to talk to the naval gunfire lieutenant." He gets on there. I said, "Hey, how about we register 1 or 2 targets on each side of the pass?" He said, "Well, how are we going to do that?" And I said, "Well, if I tell you north side, you got to drive your boat. You got to pistol. We're not a boat. We're a ship." "Oh, yeah, okay. You got to drive your ship to the north side of the ridge line so you can shoot your rifle into the north side of the pass. And if I say south side, we're not in Chicago. You got to go down and get outside the bay and shoot over the Esso plant. There was an Esso refinery that
Okay.
another platoon had security of, into the south side of the mountain. We're going to register some targets. What are we going to call them?" I said, "How about North 1 and North 2, South 1 and South 2?
Nice.
"Okay." And I said, "I'll give you the military grid." He said, "Yeah, I really prefer the lat long." I said, "That's above my pay grade. I don't do lat long." I learned later how to do it.
Yeah.
I said, "You figure that shit out." So we got the registered targets.
Okay.
So the platoon adopted me because you couldn't really shoot artillery in there because of the switchbacks and where the
Mhm.
arty was. But you could shoot naval gunfire at the side of a mountain and
Yeah.
you could hit something. And that meant nobody was going to be firing real close to the bunkers.
Right.
It took me about 3 weeks. Every day, right before 1800,
Mhm.
these mopeds would come through with what they called moped boys on them. And when they hit the
Okay.
pass, there'd be one coming in each direction, and there'd be nobody on the moped, and they'd yell at Ravello, and they'd go down. They were always last. I said, "What's going on?" "Oh, the moped boys are delivering the girls to the bunkers to spend the night." They said, "We got girls spending the night in every bunker?" "Well, not in every bunker. You gotta have money to get a girl. And, either the Army's dialing up a girl or the Marines dialing up a girl. And the Marines would always say, "Not me, not me. It's the Arvin." The Arvin would
Yeah.
always say, "Not me, not me. It's the Marine."
Right.
They have a saying in TBS for challenges called "What now, Lieutenant?" That just popped into my head. What now, Lieutenant? Anyway, I said, "Well, we probably ought to." I'm talking to my confidant, the Lance Corporal. I said, "We ought to put a stop to that." He said, "Well, before you do that, on the nights that there are no girls, we always get hit. And on the nights and there are no girls and all the Arvin get on the moped and leave that night, which is once we get really hit hard."
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a tell. So he said, "You play cards, right, sir?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, well, we can play cards during the day because nothing happens in the daytime. Trucks
Yeah.
go by, everything in security happens at night."
Right.
So no shit. I watched this for a couple of times. Sure as shit is true. And every time there were no girls, we got hit. Every time there were no girls and no Arvin, we got hit hard.
Right.
Anyway, so welcome to Vietnam, Lieutenant. The ability to call supporting arms with credibility gave me instant credibility
Absolutely.
with the platoon. And after I think I was in the crotch of Haivan for 2 months, I was rotated off that and went to Hill 124, which is a hill west and south of Hill 190 that's in the
Okay.
Da Nang Trace. So they drew a line around Da Nang called the Trace,
Mm-hmm.
and they drew the line at the distance of a 122 millimeter rocket.
Okay.
And the goal was like hockey. You keep the other team, since we got the hockey playoffs going on right now.
That's right.
You keep the Florida Panthers outside the Trace.
Yeah.
Because if they got to the Trace, they could put a 122 rocket on Da Nang International.
Oh,
Da Nang
okay.
International runway, dual cement runway side by side, basically running north, northeast, south, southwest, 12,000 feet, 24 hours a day, every 30 seconds a takeoff, every minute a landing, the busiest airport in the world.
Right.
One rocket shut it down. So the Da Nang
Wow.
Trace was dedicated at different points in the war, full regiment, 3 battalion of infantry strung around. And because
Wow.
McNamara was a technology guy, they Roman plowed the Trace and put sensors in, and sensors would pick up movement. And if a sensor went off, they would shoot artillery at that grid because they knew the grid of the sensor at night. Well, the next day, the grunts would have to go out, do a BDA patrol on the artillery thing shot to see if they killed anything.
Right.
Well, guess what? The VC and the NVA smart enough to figure out there's sensors in the ground. And so every night, they would get some animals, chickens, an old goat, push it across, hit the sensors off. They would shoot a bunch of artillery rounds. When the artillery rounds stopped, the NVA would walk in behind them, infiltrate where they want to go, shoot the 1 or 2 rockets, walk back out. They're faster than you can shoot artillery. They'd shoot artillery back. The next day, the grunts would walk out and check where the artillery fire went. Then the NVA, knowing the grunts were going to where the craters were, would set an ambush.
Oh,
It,
geez.
it would take you, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to sort of figure this out.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm going to continue down this rabbit hole, then I'll be quiet for a second.
Yeah.
We had two policies that killed us. We would rotate units,
Uh-huh.
saying so you didn't get stale or bored between Hivon Pass and 124. Well, it took me a month and a half to figure the tells in Hivon Pass when we were getting hit. It took me a month, maybe I'm a slow learner, to
Right.
figure out when we were going to get ambushed, running patrols to check out, you have to do a crater assessment. Laminated card,
Yeah.
Lieutenant. Measure
Yeah.
the center of the crater, how deep it is. Call it in.
Yeah.
17 lines. Give it to the
Wow.
radio operator to call it in, but you get ambushed.
Yeah.
So rotating the units was detrimental because guess what? The VC unit that operated in that area,
Mm-hmm.
he was there for life.
Yeah.
The duration. He was from that village, from
Mm-hmm.
that set of jungle where they went every day to chop wood because
Yeah.
they lived on fire in the village. So he knew
Mm-hmm.
all the trails in the nearby jungle.
Right.
And so the other thing we did, we had the individual replacement policy. So when
Okay.
the Marines first went to Vietnam, they went as units.
Right.
So Operation Starlight was done by a composite group of BLTs that were trained in Okinawa, had their
Mm-hmm.
brothers, they did great. But the infinite wisdom of DOD manpower and the Marine Corps
Mm-hmm.
bought in, we're going to send that new draft of Marines and soldiers in every day, and the computer is going to tell you what unit you can go to. Just like I came in,
Right.
was a replacement for a lieutenant for Alpha 5th Recon 3rd
Mm-hmm.
Platoon. That lieutenant had been put into 326 and since wounded 3 months earlier. The individual replacement caused churn to where
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel comfortable about the 6 month point.
Right.
About the 6 month point, I got it. You just feel it. You
Right.
say 6 months in the grunts, I never went back to that warrant officer, that hot shower. That's
Mm-hmm.
6 months. No
Yeah.
shower, you live in a fucking hole.
Right.
Sea rats, one set of utilities.
Mm-hmm.
But as you do on your podcast, big shout out to AJ, change your socks. So as
Yeah.
a leader, make sure your Marines got fed and they had to change their socks every effing day, no exception, except for the guys who are hardcore. Usually guys on an extension didn't wear socks. They had calluses.
Really?
Yeah. Didn't wear socks.
Wow.
So, and those were, you had the nuts that, won't tell you that was a lot of people, but that was some
Uh-huh.
guy that was on an extension and stayed there and had acclimatized, and he just would
Yeah.
go barefoot. You made him wear his boots, he'd wear his boots.
Yeah.
But he's also the best point man you
Mm.
had. So you would
Right.
say, well, shit, we'll let Hernandez walk barefoot or wear boots with no socks. But yeah, foot check every day
Mm-hmm.
in the afternoon. Sit back on your back, hold your feet up, force your corpsman to do it. Guess what,
Mm-hmm.
Lieutenant? You go around behind your corpsman, double check your corpsman's doing it. So he's got trust. He knows you're. And if some guy has got a blister that's the size of a silver dollar with pus underneath it, you got to tell
Mm-hmm.
the corpsman, hey, come back here and lance that fucking thing. Not the
Yeah.
kid doesn't want it lanced. You got to lance it, drain it,
Yep.
and put some duct tape on it. We didn't have what they call moleskin.
Moleskin. Yeah.
Well, our moleskin was duct tape, right?
Right.
Duct tape your foot. So anyway, uh, FNG Lieutenant, welcome to Vietnam. Credibility established by the best school because it was practical application.
Oh yeah.
Supporting arms school known as Recon Replacement School. I go full loop. I was dating a girl in Mary Washington in TBS. About halfway through Saturday, the date would be you would take your dirty laundry and your notes, go to a paid laundromat with your girlfriend, 6-pack of beer, do your dirty laundry, study your notes, because you always had a test on Monday.
Right.
The Mary Washington girls knew the yellow, which is the answer sheet, better than you. She had the 81 millimeter mortar. Take Kathy out this week. She's 81 millimeter mortar. Give
Yeah.
her 2 beers, she'll give you the answers. Got it. I told her I wanted to go recon. She said, I'm not
Yeah.
dating you anymore.
Oh,
I said,
wow.
okay, fine, screw you. Went back. 6 years later, I'm talking to a girl that I knew at Mary Washington down at Camp Lejeune that married a Marine. Whatever
Yeah.
happened to Kathy? Oh, she married a history professor. Why did she dump me? Oh, it wasn't you. The guy before you was a second lieutenant named Graves who went recon.
Yeah.
I said to this guy, well, what the hell happened to Graves? Oh, he got killed on his 3rd week in country being Gungy and won the Medal of Honor.
Yeah.
And it broke her heart. And she said she wasn't dating any more recon guys because she knew the Marine Corps. She
Yeah.
finally gave up dating lieutenants. But in those days, the only people who would date Mary Washington were lieutenants because the
Right.
guys at UVA, you know, they were, that was Virginia's Ivy League. They were too cool to
Right.
be Marine officers. So anyway, Hill 114 having a great time.
Wow. And kudos to you for this. And I wish a lot of individuals would understand it. But you coming in, observing, figuring out what's going on, and listening to your junior Marines as they're telling you, hey, this is that, and giving you the lowdown on everything that's going on, and you taking it all in, and then utilizing the skills that you learned and saying, hey, here we are, this is, I know how to do this, and gaining that credibility. That's huge. And it goes so far, but good for you to be able to do that. That's awesome.
Well, I'm not special and I'm not very fast, but I did learn growing up shoveling shit out of the stables for reckless that
Hmm.
Lance Corporals run the Marine Corps.
Right.
They're the glue between the NCOs and the working party. We're
Right.
the fire team assault, fire team of 2 guys. Hey, fire team left, you go left. We'll give you a base of fire. It's not
Right.
4 guys, it's 2. And
Hmm.
that's the Lance Corporal telling 2 PFCs, get the
Right.
fuck up and go around to the left. We'll cover you. When you get over there, yell at us. So, you know, this, AJ, coming up in the Marine Corps,
Hmm.
listening to your Marines. The other people that do this great are the Royal Marines in Britain. And
Hmm.
the Royal Marines teach their young Royal Marine lieutenants and captains, I call it teach them to be lazy. They're paid to think, to study warfare, to be experts, and to make
Hmm.
decisions. The Royal Marine Sergeant runs the unit, and some of our great Marines worked the exchange program.
Hmm.
I missed that opportunity. Um, one of my best friends got it as 2 captains competing. Tom Jones, and this is the Jones Jr. We have the tall Jones, which is General Jim Jones,
Hmm.
tall drink of water, a former commandant, former NATO commander.
Right.
We got Little Jones, don't say that to his face. Tommy Jones, retired as a 2-star, but was the best training general in the Marine Corps. Well, Tommy went to the Royal Marine program. The other
Hmm.
great Royal Marine that everybody knows Vietnam about is John Ripley, with a
Hmm.
Ripley at the bridge as a captain. Um, Incredible stamina to blow the bridge at Dong Ha to
Hmm.
stop the 1972 NVA offensive in its tracks, stopped it, saved the government of South Vietnam for 3 years.
Yeah.
But they teach the Marines do the work. So I also know that I'm not a smart person. So if you ask everybody, they'll tell you something, and you still get to make the decision. You don't like the idea,
Right.
you don't do it. I'll give you a what now, Lieutenant, from Hivon Pass. I'm listening to one radio network. It's all
Hmm.
Spanish. Well, I say to him, is that Spanish? He goes, yeah. You know Spanish, Lieutenant? Yeah, I understand it. I have trouble speaking it. I took 8 years of Spanish. What do you mean? Well, yeah, I had to take it in high school. 4 years of
Hmm.
Spanish. It was the easiest. Straight C student. Liberal arts college had to take 4 years worth of Spanish, 8 semesters of Spanish. I can say dos cervezas.
Yeah.
Bring them on. Dos. Yeah, dos
Yeah.
cervezas. For me, dos cervezas for AJ. Well, he
Yeah.
said, I'll have to tell everybody. So that was their bullshit network. Um,
Yeah.
all through the Marine Corps, there's always been a bullshit network. You dial it down,
Hmm.
non authorized. Troops pass the word, but
Yeah.
they get this one was in. I said, why is it in Spanish? He said, because the Arvins down at the French fort listen to the bullshit network, and we really think the Arvins are also VC playing both sides. That's why they never get hit,
Mm.
and they listen to the bullshit network. We speak Spanish. They only got one guy that can speak Spanish, but we're not changing the network. So I said, okay, what now, Lieutenant? Do you get all upset and shut it down, or you let it go and worry
Right.
that some communications officer somewhere in the rear or somebody who's listening to the whole
Hmm.
spectrum finds Spanish and they
Right.
do a DF and it sort of pushes. Anyway, that what Lieutenant? What now, Lieutenant? Let him have the bullshit network uh, during the daytime. I said, shut it down at night. We got to be alert. I told the Lance Corporal to shut it down. I said, we'll keep the
Yeah.
speaker on it. Don't pull any tricks. Don't switch frequencies. You got the good job. You're up here in the CP. You could be down
Yeah.
there in Bunker 7. So anyway,
Yeah.
it's all good. So
Yeah.
how we doing on time? Because I can tell you stories longer than you got tape, AJ.
Hey, well, as long as I'm done by 7 tonight, I've got another recording at 7.
You
But
it,
if you want to take a quick break, we could do that,
nope,
and then come back. You want to take a break?
no, I'm good.
No?
I was just
Okay,
trying
I'm
to
good
be
too.
I was just trying to be good to the host. When you're ready for me to stop talking, I'll stop talking. If we're going in chronological order, I'm sitting on Hill 124, which overlooks the Da Nang Trace to the west. Its job is to stop infiltration of the rocket shooters.
Hmm.
This is a barren hill. We've dug a trench line and fighting holes. We're filling sandbags every day. That's all you do. We get our resupply by Hilo. And one day I get a new team. I'm all excited. I get the 106 recoilless rifle. And
Okay.
somebody's infinite wisdom, they had one rifle and one half a section. A section of 106s is two. I got one. I think the other one. So the 106 rifle platoon belonged to battalion, just like the
Uh-huh.
81 millimeter mortar platoon was a battalion asset to
Right.
deploy as the battalion commander thought. Um,
Uh-huh.
I think the other one went to Hill 190. You could see
Okay.
190. It was about 6 kilometers
Okay.
northwest of 124. So I learned from my naval gunfire. This is a rifle. We picked a spot where it could shoot north and south and west. We couldn't shoot
Okay.
east, but east was where the villages were, so it didn't matter. So I'm going to do registered targets. I'd explain that what they were. We get our cardboard maps. It's uh it's now fall. There's water in the paddies between
Hmm.
124 and 190. It's flat as a slate. Rice
Yeah.
paddies, 3-foot dikes, glimmering water. They were in a twice a year production of rice, which is really good. They got 2 full rice seasons,
Okay.
fertile ground because the jungle streams did it. The fields had people working every day. So I'm registering on this creek bed. It's halfway between me, about 3,000 out, between me and
Okay.
190, looking straight, not thinking, all right, shoot the 50 cal is barrel on top of the 106 round. You always
Okay.
shoot the 50 cal as a spotting round. So you can shoot the 50 cal once or twice or 3 times, and you with wheels, you move or traverse elevation and horizontal with the 106, you get it on
Right.
target. Then the command that every lieutenant learns, and they love to use it in TV is fire the 106. And the lance corporal that's on it puts his hands over his ears
Yeah.
because he's sitting next to this huge blast. He's already got cigarettes or yellow squishies in there, and the plunger has to go in, so he always hits the plunger with his elbow. I never knew that till the first time I saw it being on there. Boom! The 106 fires. If you're right behind it, you can't be right behind it because there's backblast. But everybody's looking. We got our binoculars at the creek. We miss the creek. The round hits the rice paddy that's got 2 or 3 feet of water in it. That's right behind the creek. And boy, when you're a kid and you take those rocks about the size of a silver dollar, and you're up on the river or the pond and you're skimming rocks, you learn how to skim rocks, throw it really hard, skim it further than everybody else.
Yeah.
This 106 round skipped on the water and went straight over 190, missed the tower by 10 feet, and went into Elephant Valley somewhere. Just kept going.
Holy
I
cow.
gotta tell you, the radios lit up. The company commander was on the radio. Let me speak to the 6. Who the fuck do you think you are? You're firing at one. You will never turn. It was 6,000 yards away. 106 not. Well, they teach you the effective range, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I can't remember it. 1,800 meters, and then supposedly good out to 3,000.
Right.
This fucker hit that water. It went 6,000. Guess it was moving slow. Made a lot of noise. Went by scared. I got my ass chewed out on the radio so bad. The good news was I was on 124 and he couldn't get me. I could take the radio and hold it like this. Whole hill could hear me getting my ass chewed on the speaker.
Yeah.
I got it. We won't shoot at you again. Anyway, dude, I tell you, you can learn. I learned the elbow trick on the 106.
Yeah.
So the other 106 thing we learned, we came up and the 106 leader, the lance corporal, says, "Hey, Lieutenant, we're running low on ammo. Can you put in a resupply request for 106 ammo because we shot a lot registering the ground?" I say, "Yeah, I love ammo. No problem. What do you want?" So he writes out the dodix. The dodic is the right serial number. You got to tell the ammo guy what to get.
Right.
I don't have them memorized. I don't know what they are. He writes out 4 of them. I approve it, give it to the radio operator, who calls it in on the Battalion Tech 2 net is logistics.
Yeah.
The guy says, "Roger that. We'll service the needs sometime next week." Next week, here comes the 46. Underneath it is a big sling, big net with a pallet. Drop it on our LZ.
Right.
It's a pallet of 106 ammo. It's great. I go down there and says, "Well, we got to shoot one of each of these." I learned. And so the guy, half of it are beehive rounds. I said, "Beehive rounds? What are those?" "Well, sir, I call them beehives. Some French name I can't pronounce, but we'll show you what it is." So they go out, and we come back there, and he says, "We got to clear everybody away from the back blast." Yeah, we know that. And the forward blast, because a beehive round goes off at like 200 meters, sir. I said, what? Yeah, you shoot a beehive if you shoot the final protective fire and the enemy's in the lines. You shoot the beehive. And I go,
Oh,
you mean that's a flechette? Yeah, my slow hard drive.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the name. That's a flechette. There's 3,000 flechettes in a beehive round. It comes out of the barrel and it goes like a big shotgun, sir. They're really cool. Well, how do you know if you hit something? Watch this. So he goes over and he picks a draw, and like you had to cut the weeds down outside your wire, and you had
Yeah.
to burn it, and you had to cut weeds every day or burn it back. He says, watch this. See that draw? It's all fully grown. You couldn't see in it. It was really an
Yeah.
avenue of approach you couldn't see in. He cranks it down. He shoots that beehive round down the draw, and the bushes for the first 100 meters, they're fucking gone.
Wow.
And so my platoon sergeant comes over and says, hey, sir, we really only need about 20 beehive rounds for the final protective fire. We'll be lucky if we ever get to fire that many. Can we use the rest of them? Can we shoot the rest? I said, why? He says, let's shoot beehive down every draw,
Clear it
and we
out.
don't have to go down there and chop wood and clean it all out and get stickers, and it's fun and
Yeah.
great idea, Marine. So, finally, later that afternoon, after we probably 60 or 70 rounds go off, 190 calls over there and said, I know you're not getting attacked. You're wasting ammo. What the fuck are you doing? I'll tell you when I come. No, you tell me right now what you're doing. We're shooting beehive rounds in the draw. Nothing. About an hour later, over on 190, the 106
Same
is
thing.
going off, going down the draws. So,
Hey, if
190
it
learned
works,
a
it
lesson
works.
from Hill 124.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a pretty smart thing to do, though. I mean, you're saving people going down, their energy, their time, their effort, which they can put into something else. So it makes
The
sense.
grunts are smart wisdom on how they perform. And there's that old grunt saying, never stand when you can sit.
Yeah.
Never sit when you can kneel. Never
Hmm.
kneel when you can lay down. I got to
Yeah.
tell you something. If you're using your Cadillacs and you're moving 20 clicks a day, that's your number one saying. And your
Yeah.
Cadillacs are, when a platoon sergeant says, saddle up, get in your Cadillac, your two boots are your Cadillacs, you're
That's right.
moving out. And only Marine Corps humor does Cadillacs mean two boots and you're getting your Cadillacs. Right. And all the
That's right.
FNGs are saying to the other guys in their squad and their fire team, we ain't got no fucking Cadillac. Shut up, FNG. Just get moving. You'll figure it out. Anyway, it's
Oh,
all
wow, I
good.
love it.
It's all good. The Marines are the heartbeat of the unit. And if you take care of your Marines
Hmm.
like you're the mother and their father, and you train them, they'll take care of you.
Very true.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if they hate you. If you're taking care of them, the old timers will figure it out, and
Hmm.
they'll communicate, and you'll get your missions done.
Yeah,
Your
absolutely.
job, your first job is to accomplish your mission. The first step of accomplishing your mission, Lieutenant, is taking care of your Marines, because
Yeah.
that's the cornerstone. That's the cornerstone of leadership and a cornerstone of ensuring the mission is correct. All
Yeah.
right, I'm going to take a drink of iced coffee. It's too
Oh,
early.
nice.
I know I do iced coffee. It's only 12:30. When you ring the bell for happy hour, I can put a shot of Kahlua in the iced coffee, and I tell my bride that's just to keep me awake so you can keep working me because I
There,
do
yeah,
everything you tell me
smart.
to do.
Yeah, that's right. as it should be. I like it.
Except I don't stop drinking iced coffee. Anyway, it's all good.
Yeah, very nice. Oh
Yeah,
man. So now so this is your first tour in Vietnam. You did more than one out in Vietnam, correct?
I did. Tours are a funny word on how you count them. I did a little over 2 years in country, so that could be
You
two
s-
tours or that could be 4 tours. You start doing extensions.
Oh, I
Um,
see. Okay.
the old Corps Marine Corps guys, the guys like John Ripley, you do a
Mm-hmm.
full tour, which is for the Marines was 13 months. Why? I don't know. I guess we had to be harder than everybody else who did
Right.
12 months. And then you come back to the States, and then if you get another set of PCS orders,
Mm-hmm.
you go back for another 13 months. If you were in Vietnam and you extended, you could get 3, 6, 9, 12-month extensions, and they just
Got it.
added it onto your tour if that was like your first tour. So
Right.
I did not have a second PCS
Right.
tour. I
So
just had a
you just did
long first
extensions.
tour and then a bunch of TAD trips back. I had a good fortune. I'll jump forward.
Okay.
When I left Vietnam, I got orders to Second Force Service Support Group,
Mm-hmm.
FSSG, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And the only reason a Recon Marine wants to go to Second FSSG is because that's the home of Second Force Recon. And
Mm.
if you're in Recon and you're in the United States, Second Force was the training pipeline for going back to Vietnam. Second Force
Oh,
never
okay.
went to Vietnam, but everybody that ever was in Second Force, every Marine in Second Force either went, came back, or going back again. And so all your buddies ended up in Second Force as the East Coast place because First Force, Third Force, and Fifth
They were,
Force, they were all in country.
yeah,
Uh,
and they stayed there, and right?
yeah, the
Yeah.
the the flagpoles stayed there. So First
Right.
Recon Battalion, Third Recon Battalion, Alpha Company, Fifth Recon Battalion.
Mm-hmm.
Those flags stayed in country. First Recon was in country 5 years, almost to the day. Lived at a place called Camp Reesner,
Mm-hmm.
which was down Division Hill, which was Hill 327, 4
Right.
kilometers west of Da Nang International. And
Mm-hmm.
First Recon got the good deal. They inherited, and most Recon Marines say you don't know this, they inherited the base camp from Third Recon,
Hmm.
who had named it after First Lieutenant Frank Reesner, who in 1965, as a company commander, was bird dogging one of his lieutenants south of Hill 327. The lieutenant's patrol got in a big firefight.
Mm-hmm.
Frank Reesner uh, deployed himself, saved the patrol, saved 3 or 4 Marines, won the Medal of Honor, and
Mm-hmm.
died, of course. And so, to honor him, they named Camp Reesner for him.
Right.
First Recon got in country first. They got in country in 65, but in
Mm-hmm.
65, the Marines were around Chulai, and I got a
Right.
great historical Chulai story for you on,
Okay.
on the name of Chulai. But anyway, when the Marines doubled down and brought the 3rd Division in after the
Mm-hmm.
1st Division,
Right.
the 3rd Division got, I don't know why, they decided to deploy them straight from Oki up north, and they got the DMZ and what's known as Leatherneck Square and
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of hard fighting. We're talking about conventional, in your face
Yeah.
warfare, trench warfare, artillery duels. Major Al Gray, great
Mm-hmm.
hero of Geo Lin, artillery duel with the NVA artillery, developed shoot and move your artillery tube to a different position as shoot as you
Right.
shoot, stuff that went back all the way to the days of, Civil War. Al Gray as a major doing it at Geo Lynn. 3rd Division was in the fight. 3rd
Yeah.
Recon went north with them. 1st Recon came up from Chulai and inherited this great base camp called Camp Reasoner, which was a camp in itself with its own big LZ. LZ 401 was the number of LZ Finch. That was the home of Camp Reasoner. So anyway,
Okay.
I ended up when I left at 2nd Recon, 2nd Force, and then when they needed somebody, they could send you TAD, and you go right back to Philippines or Camp Reasoner. You're on TAD orders.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
Sometimes you go right back to the same job. It needs
No
needs
kidding.
of the Marine Corps,
Yeah.
and we're fighting first. And as we went through the drawdown and Nixon drew the forces down, doing what was known as Vietnamization, and slowly withdrew our forces, really stupid idea, the Marine Corps enhanced recon as an economy of force to keep track of the enemy out front as they tightened their belt and pulled defensive units in closer. And at the end of the day, they were guarding the harbor at Da Nang and that 12,000-foot runway, which was the original harbor and runway that the battalion landing team landed on Red Beach in April 1965. And when they walked off that boat in Da Nang Bay, were met by the mayor of Da Nang with the ladies that put leis on their head. Hey, welcome to Da Nang, Marines. We're glad you're here. But, it was a great landing. And so 1st Recon was there. We were there 5 years. I got a 1st Recon shirt on today.
Yeah, I saw that earlier. Yeah.
I had to stand up, hiding behind my name.
To all the listeners out there, if you're struggling, need help, anything like that, don't forget the VA has some great resources. You can always dial 988, press option 1. You can always text 838-255, or you can go to veteranscrisisline.net and click on the chat icon. Any of those options will put you in contact with somebody that can help you out. But remember, one veteran life loss is one too many. I care about you. I know Mike cares about you. The whole veteran community cares about you. So please reach out for help. And if you're out there and you're not struggling, reach out to the buddies that you served with, ask them how they're doing. If they need that helping hand, please give it to them. Again, Mike, thank you. Much appreciated. To all the listeners out there, stay motivated, change your socks.